The Batman, when it first released, was regarded as one of, if not the greatest comic book movies of all time. This is for a plethora of reasons, but one of the main ones is its comic accuracy and how much it stays true to the character. And albeit this sentiment is true for the most part, I have severe criticism with this talking point being used to suggest that the Batman is better than The Dark Knight, a film I deem to not only be an overall better movie than The Batman, but also a better Batman film. Matt Reeves revealed that he took many inspirations from different comic books, but the three heaviest was Batman Year One, written by Frank Miller, Batman Ego, and the most popular, Batman The Long Halloween, written by Jeff Loeb and illustrated by Tim Sale. Now, there's no denying that this film takes heavy inspiration from The Long Halloween. However, my issue comes from the idea that this is unique to the Batman and excluded within The Dark Knight. Because if we read The Long Halloween, which all of you should have, it's one of the most iconic Batman stories ever published, The Dark Knight is almost a one-to-one film to The Long Halloween. For those of you who don't know, I'm Abyss from the Hive Mind Comics, and let's get into why The Dark Knight is closer to The Long Halloween than the Batman. Let's start with the biggest and most important comparison. That would be the plot of the film in and of itself. So it's very clear that the Batman is a murder mystery-esque film. Of course, with Riddler attacking different people and then Batman having to solve the mystery of it, which at its core, admittedly, is exactly what The Long Halloween is. However, my question becomes, is this actually inspiration from The Long Halloween, or is this just a similarity within genre of film? For example, the film Knives Out is a murder mystery. Did that take inspiration from the Batman The Long Halloween because there's a killer on the loose and the protagonist has to solve the case? Well, of course not. The reason being, the plot and the context as to why these things are happening is completely different. In the Batman, the killer, that being the Riddler, is specifically attacking different political figures for their corruption involving the Falcone family. Now, the only similarity to The Long Halloween in this essence is the fact that the Falcone family is involved, because in The Long Halloween, the reason why the Falcone family is involved is because the story is significantly more personalized to a specific character. Holiday is a reflection of Harvey Dent's desires and hatred towards the mob. In the Batman, the plot is explaining that the killings are a result of a vendetta because of corruption, where Falcone just so happens to be the head front of that corruption within Gotham. Whereas in The Long Halloween, it's because of Harvey Dent. Holiday is killing members of the Falcone family and people related to Falcone because it would accelerate the process of Harvey Dent taking them down. The Long Halloween is a character analysis on Harvey Dent. Every action and repercussion is done to further the character arc of Harvey, which, hate to break it to you, is the exact plot of The Dark Knight. The only substitution is there isn't a murder mystery. And it goes beyond just the core themes of the plot itself. The plot elements that create these themes is genuinely reflected significantly more throughout TDK than the Batman. Starts out with Harvey Dent teaming up with Batman and Jim Gordon in order to take down the mob. And the mob employs different tactics to fight against this new alliance between Batman and Harvey. In The Long Halloween, we see the mob specifically target Harvey's wife, Gilda, whereas in The Dark Knight, they attack Rachel. In both projects, this is utilized to further show Harvey's hatred for the mob and his descent into corruption. The mob hires superpowered beings or extraordinary forces in order to combat the Batman's interference. What do they do in The Dark Knight? Literally hire the Joker. These events all lead to Harvey furthering down his path of corruption, eventually becoming Two-Face, which directly results in Harvey taking revenge on the people he thinks wrongs him. Like, genuinely. The plot of these two stories are quite literally the same because they are Harvey Dent stories at their core. The only similarities in plot that the Batman shares is the idea that it's a murder mystery with Falcone involved, which again, is this more akin to the genre or actual inspiration from The Long Halloween? Based on how closely TDK follows The Long Halloween's plot, I'm chalking it up to genre. Now, after hearing that argument, you should already be convinced that The Dark Knight is just the more closer adaptation to The Long Halloween. However, most people, after hearing all of that, start to go into the similarities the Batman has to the Long Halloween. But most of the time, this comes from a fundamental misunderstanding between plot and story. Story commonly refers to what is happening and how they are happening. Plot is why they are happening and how they relate to each other, making a one cohesive event. And in this case, there's significantly more to talk about when we are looking at the story similarities between the films and the comic. For example, one scene that is taken almost one for one from the comic books into the Batman is the scene with Catwoman and they're fighting over the safe. In terms of story, what is happening is pretty much the same. It's just Batman fighting Catwoman. In terms of scenes, this is about it. But if we're willing to say that this is a similarity simply because the event itself takes place in both comic and film, we have to extend the same grace to TDK. As the same way this event was taken directly from the comic, the meeting on the rooftop between the Trinity, Harvey Dent, Jim Gordon, and Batman, is taken directly out of the Long Halloween. And again, if we're ignoring the context as to why these things are happening, scenes like the money burning is taken from the Long Halloween. The assassination attempt during the courtroom in TDK would be taken from the Long Halloween and Maroni splashing acid on Harvey's face. So even when it comes to just story elements and the events taken from the comic book, I still believe there's more to draw from during The Dark Knight than there is from the Batman. Now, of course, there's more to it than just specific events. We have to go over similarities within continuity. And there's two major ones, and they both come from the Batman. That would be Selina supposedly being the daughter of Carmine Falcone and Thomas Wayne's involvement with Falcone. So the first one, I want to give it to you guys and say that this is a plus for the Batman. However, that specific element in continuity isn't explicitly explained or outlined within the Long Halloween. If I remember correctly, it's not even an implication until Dark Victory. And because that's just not the Long Halloween, I'm not going to accept it. However, if you do, I guess. And the second one is Thomas Wayne's involvement with Falcone. It really just is a similarity. So I'm completely fine with saying that that's one of the true story elements that the Long Halloween directly influenced within the Batman. And lastly, because I forgot to talk about it before for specific events, the death of Carmine Falcone. That's a big point in both the Batman and the Long Halloween. However, it all falls under the foundational premise that I tried to set within the first 3 minutes of this video. Although the Batman incorporates things specifically similar to the Long Halloween, the why these things happen and the context going in to make these themes important within each respective narrative is completely different. Therefore, it's very hard for me to call them similar. Whereas The Dark Knight, despite missing these specific elements that the Batman does incorporate, it incorporates its own similar elements, like the rooftop scene, while also keeping the core of the narrative between both stories. And because the narrative is so closely tied within The Dark Knight and The Long Halloween, it's very difficult for me to look past just similarities within story from the Batman. Now, the next talking point would be artistic approach. Matt Reeves probably took inspiration from the style Tim Sale pushes within The Long Halloween, incorporating that into his film, giving it a similar vibe, which I think is a very fair analysis. Being that the movie is a detective noir-esque film, incorporating those darker themes into the visual storytelling is very important. But I think this comes more from the set design and the gothic, more dark and gritty style towards Gotham, opposed to the actual art and style of the film. For example, this may seem nitpicky, but to the naked eye, which one looks similar or more closely resembling Tim Sale's artwork in The Long Halloween? This first shot here or this second shot here? Me personally, I think it's TDK. And the reason is very simple. It's literally just the colors. The colors do more for invoking emotion than anything else, for me at least. So when I see these close-ups or these long panned out shots invoking the same emotional response via the use of cooler color tones, which The Long Halloween almost exclusively uses, opposed to the heavy use of warmer colors like red and orange in the Batman, I familiarize the Dark Knight closer to The Long Halloween. I understand this is the more subjective point which is why I prefer to bank on the plot aspect that I touched on earlier. And this isn't like an inconsistent cherry pick that I just decided to talk about because there was one really good shot in The Dark Knight that resembles The Long Halloween. If we look throughout the entire runtime of the film, these shots are riddled throughout the movie, and the same can be said about the use of warmer colors within the Batman. I think I did a good job explaining why The Dark Knight just is the closer and more faithful adaptation to The Long Halloween. But of course, everybody is entitled to their own opinion, and you can disagree with me. If you do, I have my Discord up here where we can talk about it and you can try to convince me on the matter. If you enjoy content like this, subscribe because I come out with this type of content all the time, and leave a like on this video so it gets pushed more, and also leave a comment letting me know your thoughts. And on that note, I'll catch you guys in the next video.